What's up everyone? I'm Tim and this is my channel 40 Times Around, where we talk about everything related to motorcycles, camping, travel, and adventure. And today we're going to talk about snakes that you should know about and learn about if you're traveling in North America. I started a series a little while ago where I talked about some dangerous larger animals that you should be aware of, and I said I was also going to talk about bears and a few other things. So I'm out on a little trip today. Actually camped out the last few nights up by Lake Havasu. We were on the Arizona side in Parker. Now we're coming back down on the California side along the Colorado River over here, and these wildflowers are just blooming like crazy. Beautiful mountains all around us over here and even over here. Riding along with my buddy Bob here, Bob's bike. But these mountains right here are just phenomenal. The water that we were looking at before, I'll actually take you over there in a second, just sparkling crystal blue water. It's just absolutely beautiful. Anyways, like I said, today we're going to talk about just some snakes that you should be aware of if you're traveling in North America. You should really, on your own, do some research and kind of study these snakes, because it's actually very important to know what type of snake you encountered if you do happen to get bit. This way, when you get to emergency help or a hospital or whatever, you're able to identify what you were bitten by potentially. It's going to make treating you a lot easier, and it could potentially save your life. I was actually down in Tucson a few weeks ago at what's called the Desert Museum. It's actually like an outdoor, almost like a zoo thing, and they have a little reptile exhibit. So I went in there and I got some B-roll of some of the poisonous snakes in the area. So that was pretty cool. I'm going to show you guys some of that. I'm actually not a big fan of snakes. If you don't like seeing snakes, this is probably not the right video for you. But like I said, it's important to be able to recognize them. So we're going to talk about how to recognize them, and also how to avoid them, and where they might be hiding, and just some important things to know about them. So anyways, stick around. So like I said, today we're going to talk about snakes in North America. We're actually going to start with just the different types of snakes you should be aware of, how to prevent an encounter, and also what to do if you happen to get bit by a snake. So like I said, it's important to try to recognize these dangerous snakes, because if you do happen to get bitten, it will definitely help whoever is treating your wound. However, it's not necessary to have every single snake memorized. The key thing to keep in mind is that if you do happen to get bit, just try to remember what the snake looked like so that you can explain it to whoever is treating you medically. In North America, most snakes aren't actually dangerous to humans, but there are some exceptions to that. For the most part, in North America, a venomous snake is going to have a triangular shaped head, and they're typically going to have eyes like slits. We call these guys pit vipers, because there's usually a pit between the eye and nostril on either side of the head, but this isn't true 100% of the time. Real quick, I just want to talk about 10 of the more common dangerous snakes that you might encounter in North America, and just give you a little brief overview of them. Again, this is not all encompassing. You should definitely do further research on your own, and really do that research more specifically to the actual area you're traveling in or camping in. The cottonmouth is probably one of my least favorites, and we'll get to why in just a second, but this can also be called a water moccasin. They are semi-aquatic pit vipers. The cottonmouth is actually the only semi-aquatic pit viper in the world. That is pretty terrifying. They're found most commonly in the southeastern US. Because they have a tendency to hide in water and attack unsuspecting victims, their bites are actually pretty common. Next up on the list is the timber rattlesnake. They have an incredibly potent venom which they push out at a scary rate. Fortunately, they're also known for having a very mild temper, and they're extremely patient. In other words, they're going to give you a lot of warning before they attack. Another type of rattlesnake you might see is the black diamond. Their venom is going to attack nerve endings and requires a much higher dose of antivenom. They can be found in western United States and Canada, and even northern Mexico. Another type of rattlesnake is the tiger rattlesnake. These are easy to identify because of their vertical stripes on their back. These are pretty rare. You really only see these near the Arizona-Mexico border, and It's not very common that people are bitten by them, but they are dangerous, so keep an eye out for them. We also have the western diamondback rattlesnake. Their venom isn't actually all that potent. However, they have the ability to unleash a large amount at one time, making them pretty dangerous. A little more dangerous than that is the eastern diamondback. These are typically going to be the physically largest of all the poisonous snakes in North America, and actually one of the more dangerous ones because their venom is incredibly potent and they unleash a lot of it. This is one snake you are definitely going to want to stay away from because their bites actually have a fatality rate of 30%. I don't really like those odds myself, so I think I'll stay away from these guys. The prairie rattlesnake is responsible for less deaths than those eastern and western diamondbacks, but they're still pretty dangerous. They can be found all over western US, southwestern Canada, and northern Mexico. Something to be aware of with these guys is that their venom has a neurotoxin in it as well. Last rattlesnake on the list is the Mojave rattlesnake. The venom of the Mojave rattlesnake is considered to be the most potent of all rattlesnakes. Something kind of scary and something to be aware of is that the bite won't initially seem like anything to worry about. It doesn't hold the same warning signs of other poisonous snake bites, meaning burning and itching and that kind of thing, which we're going to get into in a minute. But rather there doesn't appear to be any danger with this bite because of the delayed symptoms. However, eventually you will experience blurred vision and respiratory failure. We also have the copperhead. The copperhead is actually responsible for the most bites of any of these other snakes we're talking about. The reason for this is that they actually freeze when you encounter them. They don't move, they don't warn, they don't shake, and they don't run away. So it's pretty common that they get stepped on, and when they get stepped on, they bite. Fortunately, their venom is the weakest of all of the snakes on this list, so that's kind of comforting to know that the snake you're most likely to get bit by is also the least poisonous. However, it is dangerous and should be treated as such. This last snake is going to physically look a lot different than the other ones, and that is the eastern coral snake. These are pretty rare, but they're also considered the most dangerous of North American snakes. Coral snakes have very little control over how much venom they unleash, and it's pretty terrifying because at any one time a coral snake could have enough venom to kill 5 grown adults. However, for the most part, when they bite, they typically only unleash a small amount, which is kind of nice to know. Back to the scary side of things, a large enough dose could kill you in about 2 hours, which is barely enough time to get to help, so if you see one of these, stay away from it. So just a quick rundown of some things to look out for. Rattlesnakes are easy to identify because of the rattle that they'll shake on the end of their tails. However, these rattles can fall off, so they don't always have those. Cottonmouths or water moccasins are going to have a white cottony lining inside their mouth. Coral snakes have a red, yellow, and black colored pattern on their bodies. Their heads aren't triangular like I said, and their pupils are round, so they actually don't look like a typical poisonous snake in North America. Copperheads can be identified with the copper-colored head and the reddish-brown bodies with dark bands. Again, it's not crucial that you memorize every single poisonous snake in North America, but rather just get familiar with them. Next, let's talk about some of the symptoms you might experience if you are bitten, and then we'll talk about what you should do if you're bitten. If you happen to get bit by a non-venomous snake, you will most likely experience some pain where you are bitten, but it won't be anything too extreme. If you are bitten by a poisonous snake, typically you're going to experience burning within 15 to 30 minutes. This will eventually lead to swelling and bruising, and could possibly cause nausea, weakness, and possibly an odd taste in the mouth. Something to be aware of is that some snakes, like coral snakes, have toxins that cause neurological symptoms. This means tingling, difficulties speaking, and weakness. If you do happen to get bit by one of these poisonous snakes, it's important that you get help immediately. Once you've called emergency services or help is at least on the way, what you should do next is remain calm, get away from the snake, and be sure to remove any watches, jewelry, any kind of tight clothing, because once that swelling starts, it's going to be really difficult to remove those things. You want to make sure that you position the bite below the level of your heart. You can clean the wound, but don't flush it with water. And it might not be a bad idea to just cover it loosely with a clean, dry dressing. Some things you should definitely not do include: don't use a tourniquet to try to stop the venom from spreading. Don't apply ice to the wound. Don't cut the wound or attempt to remove the venom. Don't drink caffeine or alcohol. Both of these will just speed up the venom. Don't try to catch the snake. You're likely to get bit again and injected with more poison. Rather, just try to remember what the snake looked like so that you can identify it later. Now let's just talk about a couple tips for avoiding these little critters. For one, make sure you check your tent before you leave. You want to make sure that there's no rips in the tent and that the zippers close all the way so nothing can get in. You also want to try to stay away from areas near water because snakes thrive near water. And also they like places to hide, so stay away from wooded areas with a lot of fallen logs. Areas with lower grass are a better choice. There are chemical deterrents for snakes, but I really don't think this is necessary. One more thing to consider is your food storage. Food storage is incredibly important for so many reasons because it attracts so many different kinds of animals. And although your food will not directly attract any snakes, it will attract mice and other smaller critters, which will in turn attract snakes. So make sure you do the right thing with your food, keep it stored away properly, and don't leave garbage out overnight. As far as where they live, there are over 20 different species of venomous snakes in North America. And every single state in the United States, except Alaska, has at least one. Venomous snake bites are fairly rare to humans, but they do happen. In fact, about 8,000 people are bitten every year. Thanks to anti-venom and modern medicine, fatalities are kept to just a handful. But it's still important not to fall into that category. Apart from doing further research beyond this video, which I kind of hope I'm at least getting you to think about some dangerous animals you need to be aware of, there's some other things you can do to avoid turning an encounter into a potentially dangerous situation. For one, don't poke or prod at snakes or act aggressively. Keep your distance if you do happen to encounter one. Even if you want to get a picture, believe me, it's not worth getting a close-up if it means you're going to get bit in the face. If you're walking around off the bike out in nature, make sure you stick to the paths. Snakes will typically avoid areas of heavy human traffic. And make sure you just wear the appropriate gear. Don't be walking around in snake territory with sandals and shorts on. Even a pair of jeans and leather boots is going to do at least a little bit to protect you from a bite if you do happen to get attacked. Anyways, that's everything I know about snakes in North America. And like I said, this is only in North America, so if you were going down to South America or any other continent, you'd have to do a little more research on your own. And like I said, I take you guys down to see the water. Just kind of walking down there now. And I'm looking out for snakes as I'm going because we're in snake territory right now. It is absolutely breathtaking here. I mean, just beautiful. A little too cold to go for a swim, but it's absolutely beautiful here. Anyways, guys, that is it for today. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you haven't already. That way you don't miss anything whenever I post something new about motorcycles, camping, travel, and adventure. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.